Let's start with the introduction to ISO 9001. The first section, which obviously most people skip over, gives the approach that the standard has taken to quality management systems and its scope and limitations. So the first thing it says is that adoption of a quality management system is a strategic decision by an organization. And it also goes on to say the precise design and implementation of the quality management system will depend a lot on the organization's situation. So it's not possible to specify exactly what the quality management system will look like for any organization. It does depend exactly on the situation they're in. This introduction then goes on to talk about the process approach. I mentioned it briefly in the introduction, but the process approach takes the view that goods and services are produced through a sequence and collection of processes. Processes being that usually defined as collected activities that transform inputs into outcomes. So the general definition of a process is that you have a collection of inputs, you do something, and they're transformed into outcomes. Not necessarily outputs, but outcomes, because an output implies you're producing an artifact or something, whereas in fact you might be producing simply a decision, which doesn't have a physical existence, but it is an outcome of the process. Now the introduction also talks about there's a diagram here on page B. In the introduction, talks about customers have put inputs into the collection processes. You have the product realization chain of processes, as well as those processes involved in maintaining and operating the quality management system. And the output of this whole collection of processes goes to the customer and produces customer satisfaction. There is a note, the relationship between ISO 9001 and ISO 9004, and also ISO 9000, as well as a couple of other standards. But ISO 9001 gives the requirements. ISO 9004 provides guidance to ISO 9001. It's generalized guidance, management system guidance. Domain-specific guidance tends to be left up to the domain concern. For example, guidance for software is developed and maintained by a ISO committee concerned with software processes, and its standard is 90,003. There is a note that ISO 9001 is supposed to be, or intended to be, compatible with ISO 14001. Now, 9001 came first, and that was followed then by 14001. But of course, having learned a little bit about management systems from 9001, the 14000 series, dealing with environmental management, did things a little bit better and changed things around a bit. So 9001 then was modified to pick up some of the better ideas. Now, importantly, all of these quality management, environment management, and the increasing number of management systems should interoperate. They should not interfere. Now, there is a specific note in this one that 14001 and 9001 are not intended to conflict.